Okay, Kyle, thanks so much for coming on. We're so excited to have you on at this
Hey, how are you?
mastermind networking event.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's start with telling people a little bit about yourself. What do you do? How did you get to where you are?
Started real estate investing about 6 years ago. Bought my first duplex, which was a burr. Bought it with private money. Did the appraisal as is and as complete on what it could be with some renos with the increased rents. Refinanced. Did another one after that, and then after the second one, I got my license because I figured I would get some deals if I was a realtor. So, and then kind of enjoyed being a realtor and I haven't looked back since. And I've always been growing every year more and more my portfolio as I go. So, yeah, it's been every year, the market's picked up, especially for us in the last couple of years. So I was able to tap into some equity and be a little bit creative with the units that I have now. Just closed on a big package there a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, that's
That's
been my
awesome. So
journey.
let's just because you talked about getting creative with financing. So how did you get creative with your financing, and what made you even need to get creative with your financing?
I didn't have any money at the time, but I had a decent job. So another realtor that I work with, he presented me to hard money, kind of like a broker, but he charged. It's pretty steep. I mean, I know a lot of now that I know more people now, I can get a lot better than what I could get at the time. But it was the only thing I was introduced to, so I kind of went with what I had. So it was a 10% setup fee with 12% after that per year. But the numbers worked, so I didn't have to put any of my money down. So I was able to pull some equity out at the time when we were buying duplexes for cheap here. At the time, it was like 90 grand or 60 grand for a duplex here in Moncton. We're far from that now. So
Mhm. That's awesome. So when you and so because I notice a lot of people find it very scary to get into hard money loans because the interest rate's scary. So I think that's a great thing that you've said because really as an investor, or especially as you grow, I think you start getting a lot more into the private lending as you get bigger. And so, what helped you get over, let's say, the hurdles of that high percentage of 10%?
I borrowed enough that I was able to cover the rentals and the payments, the mortgage payments. So, I mean, if you do your appraisal as is and as complete, as long as your as complete pays out your private mortgage and you cover your payments, yeah, you're paying a lot, but if it covers everything, you should be okay. I done that for I did two duplexes and I did a 12 unit. The 12 unit's a little bit more tough and it was more stressful because it takes more time to shuffle the tenants out, get more out in, and then you're paying a bigger amount and a bigger reno to get the rents back up. So that one was a little bit harder, but that would have been like if I do flips, sometimes I'll do a little bit more hard money. But I mean, for bigger stuff now, it's mostly VTBs. A lot of VTBs I've done lately. I'm able to convince the seller to do a VTB for me. So that's how I've been able to grow a lot faster. And
Awesome.
seconds, sometimes I can find I have a guy that'll do seconds, and you can go get some leverage your properties that way. But you got to be careful to not over leverage as well.
100%. Yeah, doing the analysis is so important. And just because you talked about VTV, do you want to just explain to the viewers, because we do have some new people on, just what VTV is?
So it's when the vendor is willing to finance a portion of the down payment or vendor financing. I've had some that I've been able to convince. Usually, I try to aim for 10 to 15% of the down payment. If there's no interest rate, perfect. If there is some, then as long as the numbers work and there's a lift possible to be able to pay that back, that vendor take back, then everybody is usually pretty easy to convince.
Yeah. And I guess I would say it's like it's like being the bank, like telling the seller, hey, be the bank, give me the mortgage. And then so not only do they make money on the sale of their home, but if they do get an interest rate, they're also making a little money off that. Or maybe, or yeah, it depends on, I guess, how you do it, right?
Yeah, it depends how you want to structure it. I've done it no interest rate, sometimes interest only. It gets a bit tougher when you got interest only, you're tight, but if you've got if you want to grow faster, quicker, you only have so much capital, so you got to be creative with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way out.
And so, how have you been when you go talk to them about a VTB? How have you been able to get them to even feel comfortable with this? Or, for example, even you said you get some without any interest on it. How do you get them to feel, comfortable with the whole process? Because this is something that obviously isn't talked about frequently. So it's a very new concept. And I feel like a lot of people would probably get scared of it just because, you've never heard of it and it's something new and unique, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I've been really, knock on wood, I've been really lucky. I'm able to approach the people, and I guess knowing my background, they know who I am and as a realtor, and usually they want to sell to me directly, and they say, look, we know you're good for the money, so they're not as stressed. But I mean, it doesn't always work like that. So they, like I explained to them, I said, your numbers don't really work like they are right now, and I need X amount of money if you help me out. Usually I'm not as, if they help me out with that, I'm not as strict on the inspection and stuff like that. So that both of us kind of in, and I'll be in some cases, I'll be willing to pay a little bit more for the property just to be able to get it at a zero down kind of potential. So I mean, every scenario is different. A lot of these guys just want to sell to me directly, so they just come to me, and it's just I'm able to structure the deal and kind of gain that confidence with them to do it with me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a great point that you said is that one of the reasons you probably get 0% interest is because you're probably offering a little bit more. So instead of putting the interest in, you're just offering probably what the interest would be up front. And then at least in that case, because I'm guessing you do a lump sum at the end is how you would do it. So
No,
you
we
don't even
just,
have to.
yeah, once I refi, I show them that the plan's kind of, this is what I'm going to do. I'll pay you, 1 year, with another year extendable, and then I'll usually pay them out after. So they're usually good with that. It's kind of a capital gain saving a little bit too at the same time. So they kind of like that. So if I'm able to swing that in a certain amount, they don't mind that idea too. And some of them that I've talked to have got lots of money, so there wasn't really an issue for them doing that.
Or they're, I guess, like they're investors themselves. So they may already know also the strategies of it
Yeah,
or understand the tax implications that their savings they get from actually doing a VTB.
yeah, that's right.
That's
Some of
awesome.
them too are really, really old owners that just don't owe anything on it, so that helps. They're getting really hard to find those guys around here, so they usually tend to not need all the money right away.
And I noticed that even, well, I don't know if they'll do 0%, but if they do a percentage, they're willing to do an interest rate because they kind of also like, the little income coming in, especially because I
Yeah.
noticed some of them that are like spenders. They kind of, I think they find it a good way of not spending their money, because it's just like they get this monthly little income and then whenever it comes back, it comes back.
Yeah, last one I did was 200,000 on a deal of 20 units. I paid him $1,000 a month. And then I just paid him off. I refinanced with CMHC. That's usually my way out, is if I can refi at 85%, then I'll pay them off. So, and I've always tried to, some people tend to want to always cash flow, but I've always been, how can I acquire the most units the fastest I can? And then I'll worry about the cash flow later when the inflation catches up to it. So, I mean, everybody's different, but I've been able to grow 200 units fairly quick this way. So,
And can you expand on that? So you're okay without not getting cash flow. So how do you sustain that?
well,
Or do you have like
some
a certain
people,
term?
it's not that I don't want cash flow, is that, you know, at first it's going to be a little bit tighter because you're really leveraged. So you're not making X amount per month. So, you know, I'm not, some people want a certain cap rate and they're looking for turnkey, but I'm looking more to kind of do a burr and try to pull my money out as much as I can and then leverage the property to the max.
Mhm.
So that I'm not looking for that big, I'm not looking to quit my job right away. So it's not really my goal.
Mhm. Uh, but yeah, so your goal is not to like it's for long term. But do you still break even, or do you like like you put some money in?
I'm open. I guess I'm open to a 4 to 5 cap, depending what it is. If I'm pulling most of my money out, I'm not looking for a higher cap that's so that I can cash flow higher when I'm looking at a building.
Mhm. Okay, makes sense.
I just wanted to ask on the VTB, do you come in with a contract and be like, okay, these are the terms, these are all the information, here's what the contract looks like? Would you simply just mention it to them, talk through with them, and then kind of draft it up once you agree on the terms?
I've done both. It depends. I kind of preemptively try to talk to the person or explain it to them. I've always been able to reach the seller somehow and explain to him how it works. And then, but sometimes I'll just put it on the contract and throw it at them. So it depends. Depends if I get a face to face. Yeah.
I've tried to get like VTBs in the past, and especially in New Brunswick, it's kind of a very foreign concept. So I've been having a hard time getting anybody to agree to it. But I need to know what your secret is.
Definitely harder on MLS 100%. It's because the market's so hot. Like these are people that approach me and want me to buy them. So they're kind of like, okay, well, you know, here, I will, if you're going to help me this way, I'm not going to do an inspection. I'm just going to walk through the units, something like that. Right. So that they'll want to go with me because they don't have to stress about anything and they're doing me a favor at the same time. So the less hassle possible for the sale, but at the same time, they're helping me. It's just kind of a risk for me too at the same time. But
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll deal with the problems later. And if there's any inspection issues, I mean, I've done so much construction so far that I'm pretty familiar when I go through units on what's wrong and what it costs to fix things. So everybody's different. It depends what your risk, what's more important to you.
Sure. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I just wanted to know, how do you find these deals? Because I'm at the point where pretty much I am at capacity, but I still want to grow. So I'm looking for those BTB deals, and I'm thinking like, how do you find them? Like, where do you go? I live in the Greater Toronto area, and that's pretty much my sweet spot.
I mean, now I've sold quite a few multi-units this way, so a lot of people come to me first, and it's usually one of the first questions that I'll ask is see if he's open to doing anything creative with me. And then he'll kind of poke into it and ask the question, and then you say, well, you kind of throw the capital gains card. What's their situation? You know, what do you need the money for? Is there, you know, can you help me out? What price are you looking for? My best solution has always been to not dicker on the price and give them the price they want, but they're going to have to help me out with this. So sometimes you have to pay, as long as the numbers work, you maybe pay a little bit more, but you get more down payment help so you can do more. It's just, that kind of goes back to my cash flow thing. You're probably not going to cash flow right away for a little bit, but you acquire the building and then you can increase the rents or do other things later that'll increase the value to catch up to it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah, just ask anybody, just anybody you talk to. Just there's no harm in trying. The worst they say is no. That's all you can do.
Getting into like that, the wholesalers lists, there's always lots of people on the private side that are selling houses too. And like that, usually people on like exactly what Kyle said, right? The private side, when you're not doing it through MLS, people are a lot more open-minded to be creative or accept creative solutions, I would say.
Like to give an example, I guess the one that I just closed on that had a big VTB, there were some properties that I had to pick up that I didn't want. So, so he was willing to help me that way, and I just grabbed everything, right? So I said, I'll figure that out. And he was happy to help me, and I was picking up properties in different locations that he didn't want. So you just got to find what he wants, what's more important to him, so that he can do what you want.
Yeah, 100%. That's very true though. I think finding their problem and finding a solution for it helps you go a long way in actually getting what you want, like that. Because once you give them that win-win, they're a lot easier to also help you win too, because you're helping them, they'll help you out. That's awesome. So now, what is the biggest mistake you've done, and what did you learn from it?
It had probably been when I did my 12 unit flip. I was very, very new. Definitely didn't have the knowledge of crunching numbers that I have now, and the whole strategy I wasn't planning enough ahead and I was new with the rents, and I didn't know what it required to get rents. So I think I racked up a lot of debt fairly quick that I wasn't expecting or I didn't forecast. I think if you plan ahead, you know what you're getting yourself into. It can be a lot less stressful than just realizing that, oh my God, I'm over leveraged too quick. So you just got to make sure you can actually swing your project before you do your project to not go under.
And how did you get, did you have to do anything special to get out of your debt, or was it like you just had to wait it out and like lesson learned, next one?
I was able to refi in time, pay some of it off. Then real estate picked up and I sold a pile of properties there, and I was able to kind of pay off my debt that way.
Okay, that's great.
Hey, what's going on, Kyle?
Hey, Martin.
Yeah, I was just curious because we know you're a top realtor in Moncton. I'm just trying to see, when you have conversations with a seller, what's the narrative, being a realtor, but also an investor? How do you usually approach it? And just how usually, does that conversation look like?
Do you mean when I'm buying, or when I approach them to see if they want to sell?
I guess both, right? So essentially, you obviously have a lot of value proposition that you can bring to a seller, how you can list it on the market, but at the same time, you're also in the market to purchase. So how do you position yourselves, right? To really make sure the seller understands, okay, like here are the many different ways I can help you, and how do you get them to sell it to you, right?
So I do have to, as a realtor, to kind of ethically tell them, hey, your property is probably worth this on MLS. I can sell it for you, but if we have to go through all these steps in order for it to sell. But a lot of the times they know I'm buying already, so they'll say, look, I'll buy it, but of course I'm not going to pay market price. But if you're willing to do this and that, I'd be interested. And usually I've bought buildings, and I don't recommend anybody to do this, but I've done it because, again, to try to get a better deal is I'll sometimes no inspection, and sometimes I only see a couple units of the building before it closes. So I'm okay with that. Not everybody is okay for doing that, but sometimes they'll sell at a discounted price if I'm willing to do stuff like that. But I still have to tell them what they can get on the market. A lot of the times they don't want to go on the market. They'll say, Kyle, this is my price. I know it's maybe a little bit lower. Do you want it? Yes or no? I've had other realtors as well come to me and say, Kyle, you're my buyer. You can't sell it to anybody. I've picked up some like that too. So it varies. It varies. Different situation, different vendor. I've sold a pile of them as well off market that I would have liked to buy, but the seller just, he would rather try it with a bunch of people and not go with my price or my terms.
Great questions. Tammy, do you want to get yours in?
Yeah, so I was just wondering about landlord and tenant laws where you are. Like here in Ontario, it's very difficult to get tenants out. You know, you have to pay them and arrange for cash keys and all this other stuff. And then there's also the, you can only increase the rent so much with current tenants and all that. So how is it where you are? Similar rules or is it easier?
It just changed. We had some of the best tenant laws there until a few months ago, and it all just changed. It's still not bad, but it's not ideal. So you can only do one rent increase per year, and you have to give them 6 months notice. And it has to be justifiable with geographical market rents. Like you can't go and just jack the rent $800 and it's not worth that. So you have to put a little bit of renos. My cheat with my buildings that I've been doing is I'll put heat pumps. So I put mini split heat pumps. I've done the big rent increase way. If you do it, you go in the news. It's not ideal. I don't want to do that. So I'm trying the cash for keys in my area here for the first time. It's not as extravagant as yours, as I've heard some people pay 20 to 30,000 to get tenants out. I'm thinking maybe 1,000 to get people out here, which is not bad if it helps speed up the process. That way it's a win for the tenants because they agree to it. But I mean, you can terminate a tenant here in 3 months, depending on the release. So I don't know. I'm trying it this way. It's going to be my first time. We'll see how it goes. But it is still pretty landlord friendly if you want it to be, or if it's done right.
Did that answer your question, Tammy, or do you have a follow-up?
Sorry, just to follow up. So what would like what rents go there for? Like let's say like a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment. How much would that go for?
Renovated units of old brick buildings that I rent them renovated about $1,200 all included. That's like new floors, lipstick, like countertops, backsplash, a tub surround, heat pumps. So that's kind of that's been the top that I've been getting. I mean, some 3 bedrooms are higher, but it all depends square footage and finish and year built and stuff.
Awesome, thank you. Did you have another follow-up or you're good, Tammy? Good, awesome. Gordon, you want to have your question answered?
Yeah. Hey, Kyle. It's Gordo.
Hey, buddy.
I've out before, so I'm about to get my refi done, and the appraisers are coming in on Monday, and I'm just finishing up like the PowerPoint of like what I want to give them, so they can see like the before and afters and stuff like that. But I'm really there's no standard way. It seems like I searched the internet. I'm trying to think, what is your opinion on the best way to present? Like, are they going to want 20 pages of pictures, or are they going to want like 3 pages, 1 page with just like major pictures and then like what I did?
If you want to get the max, you list every little item, every little step with a price tag to it that I've done before. And pictures can help to really show if there's, extra, they don't really count extra insulation or stuff like that, but they're looking for more finished, upgraded square footage. But from my experiences, the more you can show them, the better, with some beefed up numbers, and they can use that for sure.
Okay, cool beans. I think I got it then. Cheers, man.
Okay, talk to you later.
Awesome, thank you for the question. So now getting on to the next one. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, you seem like a very action-oriented person. So I'm curious to know, what are the fears that you went to transitioning from a plumber to a realtor investor? I should say investor first, because realtor, as you said, came about because you started investing. So what made you make that transition over, and how did you deal with the fears, or what kind of fears did you have?
Yeah, I'm not somebody that scares very easily in that sense. I got my wife that kind of keeps me level-headed for that. So she's my risk adversity to keep me on the ground. So I started listening to podcasts, and I just started reading books and stuff, and read all the Don Campbell books, and then Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's where it kind of all started. I said, you know what, it'd be nice to, have something else to kind of grow with. So I just started talking to people and point me in the right direction on who had all the connections and who had done some burrs and stuff like that. And just bit the bullet, did one. Again, I wasn't calculating anything. I just had that as is and as complete appraisal, and I'd figure out the rest with the rental quote. So I kind of just dove into it. I just dive into it. I'm not the most fussy numbers guy, to be honest with you guys. I've always been able to figure it out. I have my rough idea of where I want to be, and I know what stuff costs now. That I've always been that way, but I know that I'm almost going into every building almost zero down. So that's been my motto. Yeah, I think it was Rich Dad Poor Dad that really got me into it. When I read that first book, it kind of just triggered, okay, I gotta do something, pointed me into real estate. And then I kind of just dove into it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that was my book too. That's funny. I think a majority of the people read that book and it really changes their lives.
Yeah, it opens up just everything, like that one, and cash flow quadrant really gave me I was so used to working on the railway and doing 80 hours a week, try to pile up as much overtime as I can. But at some point you're at your limit there. You're never going to do more unless you start doing real estate or another different source.
100%. And Margaret, I don't know if you put your hand down by accident. Do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say something funny. He said it was he was looking for something else. He read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now I was just thinking it was my job and my manager, one of those. I'm like, no, there gotta be a better way somewhere out there. So I started looking for different ways of making money.
Yeah, that's true. I think majority of us, it's something that we kind of don't like going on in our life, and you just start venturing and trying to look at how you can change your trajectory, and just trying to just change your life and figure out something that you enjoy or that will help you get to what you enjoy or whatever that goal is that you're getting to.
Right.
Thanks for sharing. So Kyle, what about, taking action at the beginning or even during hasn't been much of a problem for you. What fears then? What are the fears that you have even just going throughout your whole, being a real estate investor, real estate, like what are the kind of fears that you come about?
I mean, it's probably now that the projects are getting bigger and bigger on a bigger scale. I've just got to be careful because there's a lot of capital being injected, and there's not only real estate going on in my life. Of course, there's other stuff, like my house and all, you got cottages, you got personal stuff. You got to be careful, kids and all that stuff. So I just got to make sure the bigger risk, bigger reward, but there's also a bigger cost tagged onto it. So, and it's a lot more stressful than just doing 1 12 unit. Like I'm probably burring about 100 units right now. So I got to keep everything, in sync. So you stay on top of all the renovators, all the contractors. So that's probably the fear right now, is that every time I'm leveling up, I guess, a little bit more at a time. It becomes a little bit newer. It's a little bit harder. There's different ways of doing it. So that's probably the scare right now. And at the same time, I got to keep on my clients. I can't let that affect me as a realtor, which it hasn't. It's just that it's time consuming right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the balance must be hard, especially like that, because you have so many properties that you're managing, you're trying to acquire, and then making sure you're still taking care of your clients.
Yeah.
Sukhminder, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Hello, Kyle. So I have a question. I just closing a lot this month, end of this month. So I wanted to, in the summer, I wanted to go ahead and build a house there. So can you suggest me how I do this?
Yeah, I can. I definitely know a lot of local builders. I built a house, my first house in Memramcook's, not too far from Dieppe. That was about 5 or 6 years ago, I think now. So I renovated the one that I have. But yeah, I don't build homes. I mostly do like I just project my own renos, but I project manage my own stuff. But I can definitely show you a builder or introduce you to a few builders that could build your house for you.
Any idea, like roughly, if I go for a 3,000 square feet, what would be the cost?
It depends how high end of a builder you want to use. I've heard some are between 280 to 300 a square foot. And I talked to another guy that he's like high end, he's like 500 a square foot because the demand's so high and that there's not enough builders and too many people that want to build here now. So I think they're kind of just putting the price that they want.
Okay, so I have another question regarding the management properties, right? So do you know anybody or do you do yourself for your properties? And what are the—
I have a property management company that does it for me. I've got a list of property managers that I can refer. I used to own a company, but I sold my shares, so I'm no longer part of that. I'm trying to simplify. Again, when you're spread too thin, you got to choose what's more best for you. So I can definitely help you with a list of property managers that you need.
What do they charge normally, approximately?
Depending, is between 5 and 7% of gross rent collected, depending what type of building and how many units you have and different areas. So it all depends.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that some people don't want to put the property on the market. I'm not aware of it. Who wouldn't want to do that?
So it's a good question, really. I just sold 2 big packages of stuff to some clients there, and they were all off market. Again, I had the conversation with them that, you can probably get 30 or 40K more per building or per property, but they just don't want to go through the whole. See, the problem is they're all afraid of their tenants. So I don't know why, but you got to line up showings. You got to get people in there. You rattle the tenants, they leave. They don't let people in. You get one accepted offer, you go through conditions, it falls apart. You go through it again, then you're 2 or 3 months into it. Most of the time when I bring a buyer, I bring a pre-qualified buyer. And I mean, I can't control people. Sometimes they back out, but most of the time I'm able to close a deal, and I've built a little bit of a reputation that the buyers that I bring usually can close without hassle. So it doesn't always work like that, but I think that's why people are coming to me first, because they know the clients I have are purchased many buildings before and are solid financially. And we do a game plan before we go in, because if the numbers don't work, don't put an offer in, because you're going to get at the bank or the appraisal is not going to work. So we kind of do things in advance to make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time, because I may have only one opportunity with that off-market deal. So if I screw it up, then he could be shopping it to other people, or he may say, you know what, we're going to list. So it all depends.
Okay, just the last question for you. How do you refinancing your property?
I'll usually use a broker or a B lender to do my deals if I have vendor financing, and then I'll refinance with CMHC with either RBC or a broker. I've got a contact for each bank here, but I've been always refinancing lately with CMHC so I can keep the ball rolling, because I'm pulling equity out at the end.
Yeah.
So I'm actually pulling money in, and if I know I overspent a little bit, even if it'll cover the difference, and then I'm still. But you mostly RBC I've refinanced with.
Thank you.
And just talking about, since you talked about CMHC, do you want to, I'm assuming you're talking about CMHC for multi-units, is that right?
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of elaborate a little bit for people, just to explain what it is, why you use it?
Again, it's been more to be able to grow faster, because a lot of the times I'm able to pull equity out at the time. So I'm pulling, I do my math at the as is and as complete at 75%. So I'm actually at the end, I'll refinance and pull 10% out, and I'm able to keep doing more. Because I mean, even though you're acquiring stuff, you still need to be able to show the down payment. So for a certain amount of time. So if you're gonna put a second on after, you still got to come up with the down payment. Or if the vendor does a VTB, they still want to see that you have the cash flow in your bank account to take on the risk and the payment. So I've always been trying to pull equity out as much as I can.
Yeah. So basically CMHC, because I believe if you just use the bank, it's at 75 is usually the max when you come to refi. And so with CMHC, you're getting up to 85.
I'm getting up to 85. I'm actually looking into a program, the MLI Select, the new one. You can go energy efficient or some affordable housing, and you can go up to 95. So I am looking into that. I've got a few refis coming that I may do that, and that would be really amazing for pulling equity out, but you're locked in for, I mean, you don't have a lot of equity, but you have it in your bank account. Then you can build, because I'm looking at building 140 units in another spot. So that's when you can really start growing a lot faster when you have the capital.
100%. And you're talking about the changes with CMHC, right? Because isn't it now actually even up to 100% loan to value they'll do, depending on, like you said, certain qualifications of like affordability and energy efficiency, or is it 95?
I haven't heard 100. It's been 95. I just know they changed from the Flex program to the MLI Select. The Flex was only, you had to have a portion of your mortgage be, the rents were lower, but they just added the energy efficient. So you do extra insulation on the exterior, solar panels, heat pumps. So that actually, you can get the higher rent and also increases the value of your building, if you ask me, and then you can pull it all out.
100%. Hey, Martin, you want to share, ask your question?
Yes, please. I was just wondering, Kyle, for your own portfolio, is it mostly in residential? Like, have you dabbled in, for example, more commercial properties or any retail space? And what's the demand for, for that type of property type from a rental perspective in Moncton right now?
I own one mixed use. It just happened to be a good deal. I just bought it. Again, vendor was being creative with financing, so I picked it up. I don't do a lot of leasing as a real estate. I do sell commercial buildings, but I think the market for me personally, because of COVID, I think it's not the best for commercial spaces, but some commercial experts would say differently, right? So they may have more connections that I don't have. But if you get the right tenants in there, it could be worth way more, but you have to have those long-term net leases and triple net leases and 5-year leases in place for it to be worth it. I was looking at buying one. He was going to do a VTB, and I got scared because some units were not renting, and there's no way there was no lift until another 5 or 6 years. So me, if there's no lift, I'm not a huge fan, or if there's no growth potential. So yeah, but I don't know enough about it to really tell you the truth about commercial.
No, that's fair. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, getting on to the next one. So what would you say what has attributed to your success? Like, what have you done in your life that has attributed to your current success?
I guess it's just diving into stuff. I mean, you just gotta figure out a way to do it. There's always a way to do it, as long as the numbers work in a sense. But sometimes you just gotta dive into it, and it sounds silly, but it'll all work out. I always say it always works out, no matter what. You'll figure out a way to do it, and you'll get out of it. And then you'll say, oh, geez, I'm glad I did that. There's so many times that I said no to deals in the past that I regret, because I was like, oh, the market's not there yet. The price is too high at the time. And now look at where the market is. So I think everybody, if they have an opportunity in front of them, to really look at taking it if it makes sense, and not hesitating, trying to find the capital to do it.
Yeah, and that's something I see in you, the action taking. You just take action. And I think for anyone, a small action or big action, but just moving the needle forward to get to whatever that goal is. because I feel like like you said, you know, it will always work out. And because you have, I'm sure, that mentality, it helps you to always have that solution type of mindset where you're trying to always find the solution to fix it. If something comes up, you're like, okay, how can I get this to work, or what can I do to make sure that we're going to be okay?
Yeah, there's always, I mean, once you get into the world, you see that this world here, that there's a lot of money out there that people are lending or can temporarily be, you know, that will help you move on to the next step if you're stuck. So there's always ways to be creative with money.
Yeah, and you're lucky because you don't really have fears, so you just like plow through it.
Yeah, and I got a good job, so I can't. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I am selling a lot of properties and I have good cash flow, so I'm not afraid that side. I'm lucky that way. So far so good. But I mean, there was a time that I didn't have that cash flow, that I was a lot more stressed about, you know, payments and where you're going to get the money. So I do understand that part as well. But now, as long as I keep working real estate and selling, I'm not worried, because I know it's always going in and out.
And I think those two things actually go hand in hand, because you're successful as a realtor and you're successful in real estate. So do you think there's anything different that you do as a realtor? Or
I do have a lot of clients that want to sell with me or list with me or buy, because they know that I know how it works, right? Or why is it not selling? Or, you know, what do I buy? What do I not buy? I mean, I don't do numbers for people. I prepare somewhat a pro forma that's really basic, but it's up to them to still do their numbers. But I mean, I've probably lived through every mistake or every situation that I can help anybody grow to where they want to grow. So it has helped in that sense. And me having done so many renos and construction, in a sense that, you know, when it comes to a house, or even if it's not, you know, investing, if it's just houses in general, or I've done a lot of land as well. I sell a lot of land. Like, I've just touched everything. So I think there's some value for people there as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Zoom user, I don't know your name. Zoom user, you want to ask your question?
Hey Kyle, it's Mike here.
Hey, Mike.
We're on. Hey, yeah. So I wonder if you could just kind of like walk me through how. Let's say I have a seller who has a $2 million apartment building, and I'm looking to purchase it, and the bank's telling me I need 25% down, and let's say I just want to put 10% down. So I know capital gains thing's going to benefit him if I pay the rest later. So would he write me a check for the other 15% put down?
So
As a
you would
second
do
mortgage?
so the way that I've written in the contract is that the buyer's gonna do a promissory note of let's say, I don't know, you're gonna use 200,000 again, to the seller for an amount of whatever your payment is, interest only, for a 1 to 2 year. And then your lawyer, as long as you have a good lawyer, so that's another important thing. So you want to have a lawyer that knows what he's doing when it comes to BTBs or seconds or real estate. So if your lawyer has never done any of them, do not use him for those deals. So he's going to structure it so it's properly secured. There's some that'll do just promissory notes that are unregistered. That's very rare, but most of them will charge a second on the property. So you can tell them where the lawyer is going to draft it up. You're going to pay for it. It'll be all done at your cost, and then it's going to be registered on title. But the lawyers, I do like a basic one, and then the lawyer kind of does a nice like legal one so that it makes sense. But the message is the same.
Okay, so then I'd have my mortgage payment and then a second payment paying off the other 15% or whatever that I borrowed, the 200,000.
The bank will want to make sure that you can afford both. So your DCR is going to be able to cover the VTB and also the mortgage payment. If it doesn't, you might have to go with a higher interest B lender, but it depends. If you can like raise the value of it, the higher interest rate temporarily is worth it.
And which sometimes you do just refinance it a couple months later and then pay off that second mortgage right away anyways.
Yeah, that's why I've been doing the refi. It kind of burns the first lender. But anyways, if you do, that's why I'm going to start to use a broker for the first one and then refinance with either CMHC or Uni or somebody, because you're taking advantage of the first lender and you're going to burn them because you're going to refinance. So I do it when my rents are all up to par. Then the appraiser does an amended value letter. I tell him, here's my rent roll. This is what I got in. He'll do, sometimes it comes in even higher. Then you refinance with the bank after.
Okay. Yeah, nice. And so when you say you're burning the first lender, you mean the bank?
Well, they're giving you a loan thinking you're going to become a client with them for, years and years, and really you're not. So they just did all that work to get you a mortgage and you're going to switch lenders. So
because you don't refinance with the same bank, you refinance with a different bank.
yeah, because what the problem is, why I do that is because the first bank will want the property stabilized for 12 months. And
Okay.
I don't want to wait 12 months. So if I can refinance right away, I'm gonna do it right away.
But you're still paying a penalty, so the bank's making some money.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's just I've had a few banks say, "Oh, Kyle, is there anything we could have done?" And I've said, "No." I said, This is just the way I do it." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they may not want to, if they see your file come across again next time, they may not want to do that with you. So they may say, "No, you know what? We know what Kyle's doing. We're not going to do that."
So maybe go to the broker for the first mortgage and then refi with your personal bank that you have a relationship with.
Yeah.
Okay.
The package I just did was with Uni, but I may still do some. Anyways, I'm gonna figure that out. But I've done some with Matthew McKay, the broker, as well. So I'm gonna do it with him. He gets a fee, so he doesn't care. So then he just presents it to whoever.
Yeah. Okay, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Great question. Martin, you want to ask your question?
I've got too many questions, guys. So you mentioned, Kyle, you are building your 140 unit. So how does financing for something like that work? To pay your builder and also to pay for the land. Would you mind just elaborate on that?
So I guess I didn't mention, this is a part that's going to scare me because it's all new. So birds don't really scare me because I know the recipe, but I'm learning this new. Your land, we're going to go probably with RBC or broker. We're not sure yet. So your land, so we kind of get an idea of how many units we can fit on the land. So example, you want to pay, I kind of have a rough idea that you want to pay 5 to 10K per unit on your piece of land. So depending on what you can build on it, the bank's going to take on the appraisal of the land and they'll say, okay, your value is this amount. So let's say your down payment's 25%. Well, the land value can be used as of that. I partnered up with a builder. So him doing the project is another 10% of the down payment. And then we just got to come up with a difference. So if you do it right, you can almost go in zero down there, but it's a lot more of a slower process. So I partnered up with a bunch of people because it's a lot more capital and it's bigger. I'm going to learn on this one. So I want to go in with people. And then, yeah, from what I'm understanding, that's kind of what we're going to do. So you're going to do draws as you go, like if you would do a house. And then once we get close to completion, we're going to apply for CMHC and then go at 85%. We may do 95, it depends, but we'll see. It's really, I don't have a lot of information. I've had clients that have bought land with me that have done it. This is my first time doing it.
So it sounds like you already own that parcel of land and you're able to refinance to get that 10%. Is that what you meant? Or
you can get it appraised based off your project that you're going to do. So your land kind of becomes equity that you can use up front. But yes, I purchased the land first.
Are you talking about a construction loan?
Yeah.
Where it goes through the phases, right? So yeah, usually how it works is that you get to a certain phase in the construction and then they appraise it and then they give you the next lump sum of money. That's what you were talking about, right? And then you just go through the next lump sum as you go through the phases.
Well, I think he was asking me, like, in terms of down payment, if I understood Martin there, is that the land, depending if you the trick to be able to go closer to zero down is you want to make sure you're buying the land. So quick math, we bought it for 475 and I can do 160 unit or 140. So I'm at, I'll divide it. I'm really cheap a door to do it. And appraisal per door would come in around 15. So I've got about 10,000, let's say, per door of equity that I can use. Just rough, quick numbers.
Awesome. Great question. So in your phases of growth, what have you had to make changes in yourself to continue growing? And like, what were those changes that you felt like you had to do to continually level up?
Geez. I'm really bad at that stuff. I just kind of roll through it, right? I don't really, I've just been saying yes, or kind of just, I don't know, sometimes it's just a blur, right? You're just kind of going through it and stuff is getting thrown at you and you just kind of just deal with it as they go. There's been, I mean, for growth, what's helped me is that, like I said, again, I'm doing a lot of real estate. So there is that cushion of cash flow that's there. So that's allowing me to really take bigger risks and saying yes to a lot of people. And I've made a lot of good connections at the same time that I know that I can go see him for a second. I know I can go see him for cheaper private money. There's a lot more of connections. I've grown my network a lot bigger. So I'm able to do more.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you don't realize how important your network is until, like you said, you start growing or you get to a phase where you can't. And if you don't have that network, it just it'll stunt you.
Yeah, you can always partner up. You can always do different, there's different opportunities. As soon as you start saying yes to everything, stuff just comes at you. If you say no, it's going to stop. So that's why I'm kind of been taking everything that's coming at me and just dealing with it.
100%. And I say the same thing, and something that I kind of also, because I feel like people are like, oh, you can't just say yes to everything. But I feel like always remember, you say yes, but you can still put your terms into it, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that you're saying yes, that I'm going to take this opportunity, but maybe I need this kind of criteria or something in place. So understanding, I guess, what yes means, because I know a lot of people, I think, struggle with that. They're like, you say yes to everything. And I'm like, yes doesn't mean I'm going to like do something stupid. Yes means that I want to do this. Let's figure it out now.
Yeah, there's always definitely a way to figure out until the deal doesn't work. If it doesn't work, then that's when it doesn't work. Then you just show the vendor. I've had many times that I would pay an appraisal even though it's not working, or I show them the numbers that, look, I tried. Next one, hopefully you bring me, I'll be able to do it, but it just doesn't work.
100%. Totally agree. Yeah, it's like that. It's the communication, right? Showing them like, this is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? Like, how can we work this out? Which is the same. Like, you're saying yes to it, and just kind of figuring out like, how can we make this work? And if it can't, usually it's them saying that they can't do it because we're always saying yes to try to get it. You're saying yes, but like, okay, but I need this satisfied or that satisfied. That's how you do it?
Yeah, I mean, it always, like, I'll do my numbers and see if, depending on the cash. I haven't had to partner up on any deals. I've always been able to find private money, but usually if you do your numbers somewhat right before you offer, you have a good idea if it's going to work or not. So you can save yourself a lot of time that way.
Awesome. So last question for you. What would you tell your younger you with the experience that you have now?
Should have bought more sooner. Geez, should have started sooner. Geez, I would have been, it's crazy how expensive it got really quick for us here. Like, I should have bought more at the time when I was hesitating, but I guess everything just happens for a reason. I wish I would have started earlier. That's all. That's really, yeah.
And how would you convince your younger self to start sooner?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to show, Yeah,
Show the numbers. Look at what the numbers are.
Yeah. I mean, the freedom that the wealth can buy is definitely the end goal. That with real estate is to kind of, there's that possibility of leveraging and just using it as a tool to find the financial stuff you want to do. So I don't know, there's lots of options.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for telling us how you do things and for the information in real estate and New Brunswick and just in general. Thanks so much for sharing everything.